Francesca Hilton, the forgotten heiress. She was born into one of the most famous family names in American history. Her father built a hotel empire that spanned the globe. Her mother was one of Hollywood's most glamorous stars. By every measure, Francesca Hilton should have lived a life of comfort and privilege. Instead, her story became one of exclusion, legal battles, and a death that shocked those who learned of it. To understand how the only daughter of Conrad Hilton and Zsa Zsa Gabor ended her life in poverty, it is necessary to go back generations to a family whose fortune was matched only by its turmoil. The Hilton origins. The Hilton story begins not in America, but in Norway. Augustus Halvorson Hilton immigrated to the United States in 1870, eventually settling in the small town of San Antonio, New Mexico. There, he and his wife, Mary Genevieve, raised 8 children. Among them was a son named Conrad, who would go on to transform the family name into a global brand. Conrad grew up in a New Mexico that was not yet a state. Statehood did not arrive until 1912, by which time Conrad was 25 years old. This unusual timing gave him an early opportunity in public life, and he became one of New Mexico's first Republican representatives. The career was short-lived. Conrad grew disillusioned with the slowness and politics of government work and decided to pursue banking instead. Conrad Hilton's path to an empire. Conrad's ambitions led him to Texas, then in the middle of an oil boom, where he hoped to purchase a bank. That deal fell through, but a new opportunity soon appeared in the form of the Mobley Hotel in Cisco, Texas. The hotel's 40 rooms stayed consistently full, and Conrad recognized the potential of the hospitality business. He purchased the Mobley in 1919, and within a decade he had acquired 4 additional hotels across the state. The Great Depression, following the 1929 stock market crash, threatened to undo everything he had built. Travel and hotel stays became unaffordable luxuries for most Americans, yet Conrad managed to retain control of his 8 hotels through the worst of the economic collapse. And as the country slowly recovered, he resumed expanding his business beyond Texas. Conrad's first marriage and sons. While building his hotel business, Conrad also began building a family. He married Mary Adelaide Barron in 1925, and the couple had 3 sons: Conrad Hilton Jr., known as Nikki, Baron Hilton, and Eric Hilton. The marriage ended in divorce 1 year after the birth of their 3rd son. Despite the personal upheaval, Conrad's business continued to grow throughout the following years as the Depression eased and the hotel industry began to recover. Marriage to Zsa Zsa Gabor. In 1942, after roughly 8 years apart from married life, Conrad married Hungarian socialite and actress Zsa Zsa Gabor. Gabor had arrived in the United States only about a year earlier, having fled the escalating violence spreading across Europe. In the early stages of their relationship, Conrad appeared supportive, even helping her parents escape Hungary. That impression did not last. According to Gabor's own later writing, the marriage quickly became defined by control rather than partnership. Conrad insisted on calling her Georgia instead of Zsa Zsa, a change she described as symbolic of a broader erasure of her identity within the marriage. She wrote that her sense of independence and her connection to her own background were diminished during this period, and that her individual needs were largely set aside. Whatever affection may have existed between them early on, the relationship described in Gabor's account was one marked by an imbalance of power, Francesca's birth and a disturbing allegation. A few months before their divorce was finalized, Gabor gave birth to the couple's only child, Francesca Gabor Hilton, in 1947. The circumstances surrounding her conception remain deeply troubling. According to Gabor's own biography, she did not consent to the encounter that led to Francesca's birth. This allegation, made by Gabor herself in her later writing, has never been independently verified beyond her own account, but it has been widely cited as part of the family's history. It cast a shadow over Francesca's origins from the very beginning, long before she was old enough to understand it herself. The Hilton divorce was finalized in October 1947. Zsa Zsa Gabor went on to become one of Hollywood's most recognizable personalities, marrying 9 times over the course of her life and appearing in numerous films and television programs throughout the 1950s and 1960s. Conrad, meanwhile, returned his attention to his growing business and to the complicated lives of his older sons, Nikki Hilton, a troubled heir. Conrad's eldest son, Conrad Hilton Jr., known to the family as Nikki, struggled almost from childhood. He was expelled from or dropped out of most of the schools he attended and showed little interest in the family business, gravitating instead toward parties and relationships. According to Zsa Zsa Gabor, Nikki and his father shared more in common than most would expect. During Gabor's marriage to Conrad, Nikki was between 16 and 21 years old, and Gabor later claimed to have become involved with her stepson during this period. Whether this claim was accurate has never been definitively confirmed, and it remains one of the more disputed elements of the family's history. What is well documented is Nikki's marriage to Elizabeth Taylor in October 1949. The wedding, paid for by Taylor's studio, MGM, became a major Hollywood event. Taylor was 18 years old, Nikki was 23, and already struggling with substance dependency and gambling. The marriage deteriorated quickly. Reports from the time describe Nikki as volatile and at times physically aggressive toward Taylor. According to several accounts, Taylor became pregnant early in the marriage and later suffered a miscarriage during one of Nikki's violent outbursts, though the full details of this event are not confirmed beyond these reports. The couple divorced within a year, citing mental cruelty. Despite the failed marriage, Nikki remained a prominent figure in Hollywood's social circles. By the end of 1951, he had become engaged to actress Betsy von Furstenberg. Von Furstenberg later described a relationship defined by late mornings, drinking, and card games rather than steady work. The engagement ultimately ended before any marriage took place, following a pattern that would define much of Nikki's adult life. Building a global empire. As his eldest son struggled, Conrad continued expanding the family business throughout the 1940s and 1950s. He acquired the management rights to the historic Waldorf Astoria, absorbing part of the legacy of the Astor family in the process. Not content with a purely domestic chain, Conrad founded the Hilton Hotels Corporation in 1946 and the Hilton International Company in 1949, creating what is considered the first international hotel chain. Conrad eventually brought Nikki into the business, appointing him vice president of the Hilton Corporation in 1951 and placing him in charge of the Bel Air Hotel. The promotion did little to stabilize Nikki's personal life. He ran into legal trouble in 1954, married again in 1958, and had 2 sons from that marriage, which also ended in failure. Conrad's concerns about his eldest son's ability to manage the family's legacy appeared to be confirmed time and again. The end of Nikki's story. Nikki's lifestyle ultimately caught up with him. He died of a heart attack at the age of 42, 10 years before his father. His death left Conrad's 2 surviving sons, Baron and Eric, along with his daughter Francesca, as the remaining heirs to one of the largest fortunes in America. How that fortune would eventually be divided became one of the most contentious chapters in the family's history. Conrad Hilton's death and the battle over his will. Conrad Hilton died in 1979 at the age of 91, leaving behind a multi-million-dollar hotel empire. Rather than dividing the bulk of his estate among his 3 surviving children, Conrad left the vast majority of it, reportedly around 97%, to the charitable organization he had founded decades earlier, the Conrad N. Hilton Foundation. On the surface, this appeared to be a significant exclusion of his children, particularly his son Baron, who had spent years helping run the company. However, Conrad's will reportedly included a provision granting Baron the right to purchase the shares left to the foundation, allowing the family to retain control of the company if Baron chose to exercise that option. The foundation, once it held the shares, was reportedly unwilling to give them up, and the matter was sent into probate. The resulting legal dispute locked the estate in limbo for years. An appeals court finally ruled in Baron's favor in March 1988. By the time the shares were transferred, their value had quadrupled, a direct result of Baron's continued successful leadership of the company during the dispute, Francesca's inheritance dispute. While Baron's portion of the inheritance grew through the legal battle, Francesca's situation was far less favorable. Conrad's will reportedly left her only $100,000, a small fraction of the fortune at stake. Francesca contested the will, but the courts ultimately ruled against her, leaving her with the original amount. It has been suggested that Conrad may have believed his daughter did not need a larger inheritance. Through her mother, Francesca was the only child among all 3 Gabor sisters, and Conrad may have assumed she would eventually inherit wealth from that side of the family instead. This explanation is not confirmed and remains speculative, but it offers a possible context for a decision that left Francesca, by her own account, feeling that her father had failed to provide for her fairly. The dispute marked the beginning of a long period of financial and personal hardship in her life. A difficult family life. Conrad had been only the second of Zsa Zsa Gabor's 9 husbands, and over the course of her life, Francesca would have 7 stepfathers. None appeared to create more conflict for her than the final one, Prince Frederick von Anhalt, who remained married to Gabor for the rest of her life. The dynamic between Francesca and her stepfather grew increasingly strained after Gabor was paralyzed in a severe car accident at the end of 2002. As Gabor's health declined in the years that followed, von Anhalt gained increasing control over her affairs. In 2005, he accused Francesca of attempting to manipulate her mother for financial gain, alleging that she had tried to use Gabor's house to secure a loan and had interfered with her mother's will. He filed lawsuits against Francesca over these claims, though the cases were dropped after Gabor failed to appear in court. Years later, the conflict resurfaced. By 2012, Gabor's health had deteriorated to the point that she could no longer care for herself. Francesca sued to establish an independent conservatorship over her mother, a move that may have been intended to give her some say over her mother's care and estate. The court instead granted conservatorship power to von Anhalt, leaving Francesca without legal authority over her mother's affairs. The final years and death. By the end of her life, Francesca, the daughter of 2 of the wealthiest families in America, was in dire financial circumstances. Reports indicate that in the month before her death, she had no permanent residence, moving between short-term rentals and living out of her car. She died from complications of a stroke. According to reports, her mother was never told of her daughter's death, as von Anhalt chose not to inform her. Francesca's story stands as one of the more sobering chapters in the broader Hilton family history, a stark contrast to the wealth and visibility associated with the family name. The Hilton legacy continues. While Nikki and, later, Francesca experienced significant turmoil, Conrad's other children built more stable lives. Baron Hilton married Marilyn June Hawley in 1947. And the couple remained married for the rest of their lives, raising 8 children together. One of their sons, Richard Howard Hilton, followed his father into business, founding a real estate investment company that further expanded the family's holdings. In 1979, the same year Conrad Hilton died, Richard married Kathy Avanzino, an American socialite and actress. Richard was 24 and Kathy was 20 at the time. Despite their youth, the marriage proved to be one of the most stable in the family's history, and the couple remained together with 4 children. including two names that would later become globally recognized, Paris and Nikki Hilton. The younger Nikki Hilton, named after her great-uncle, largely avoided the patterns that defined his life. She launched her own fashion line in 2004 and, after a brief and short-lived marriage in Las Vegas, settled into a more stable personal life. Her older sister, Paris Hilton, became the family's most widely known member in the modern era. Before Paris rose to fame, the Hilton name was associated almost entirely with hotels, with only a small portion of the public aware of the family's earlier personal struggles. That changed in the early 2000s, when Paris appeared in the reality television series The Simple Life, alongside her friend Nicole Richie, bringing the Hilton name into a new kind of public spotlight entirely removed from the hotel business that built the family's fortune. Conclusion. The Hilton family's story is one of remarkable achievements set against a backdrop of repeated personal hardship. Conrad Hilton built an empire that reshaped the global hospitality industry, but the wealth that empire generated did not protect every member of his family from instability, conflict, or loss. Francesca Hilton's life, beginning with disputed and painful circumstances and ending in poverty and obscurity, stands as a reminder that fame and fortune, even on the scale the Hilton name represents, offer no guarantee of security or belonging within a family.